guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 12 o'clock on a Sunday, which means it's time for a Q&A. Now, this is where I take all the questions that you've asked over the course of the week and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for joining me here on this week's Q&A. If you have any questions for next week, please leave them in the comments to this video. I normally film this on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, so if you want to guarantee having your question answered, then make sure you leave it in the comments down below before sort of Tuesday or Wednesday. If I've missed your question, I really do apologise. Sometimes I do miss them, and ask it again and I will get to you. Anyway, there's been some great questions this week, so without further ado, we're going to go into this week's Q&A. Okay, so the first question is from Pratek Kohli, and Pratek says, what are the top few justifications you can give when asking spectators to write their thought onto a billet or a business card? It's a really great question, to be honest, because you do have to justify it. You know, from obviously, you have to get people to write things down a lot of time from a methodology point of view, because the only way you're going to get that information is if they write it down. But if you don't justify them writing it down, it kind of looks a little bit dodgy. So I totally get the question, totally get where you're coming from. And really, I'm not a mentalist. I've said that before. I do mental magic. I do magic tricks. But I have studied mentalism, so the top justifications I would use, I mean, the main one that I've used when I get somebody to write something down is depending on the crowd, because you vary this up depending on the crowd you're performing for. But the top justification I use is, hey, look, I don't want you to forget what it is that you've put down on there. So can you write it down, and that way you're committed to that person's name. We can't change your mind, something along the lines of that. If you don't want to say, I don't want you to forget, you could say, look, in the past when I've performed this routine, I've had people change their mind halfway through. I even had somebody once lie and say that who they were thinking of wasn't the person they were thinking of, just to make me look silly. So I'm going to get you to write it down. And what that does is that commits you to that name. In other words, you can't change your mind. Whatever you write down, that is the person that we're going to go with. Now, that works really well because what that does is it gives a plausible reason as to why you've had somebody write something down like that. The other thing that you can say is, look, I want you to write this down because I want everyone to see the name that you're thinking of or the word that you're thinking of. And if you say it out loud, I've had people in the past say that, oh, you can hear what I'm saying. So if you write it down, I'll turn around, show everyone the person's name that you've written down, and then don't let me see it, and I'll turn back round. So again, that's a really good justification. You have to justify, like I say, you have to justify why you're asking people to write this down. Depending on your performing character, and again, it very much depends on your performing character, but you could talk about getting psychic vibrations from the piece of paper. I want you to write this down, and the reason I want you to write it down is because I can feel the vibrations through the piece of paper and through your hand, which sounds ridiculous, but that actually is a thing that I do to read your mind. You're reading minds at the end of the day. It's not really a thing. You can't read people's minds. So if you can come up with a plausible sort of procedure as to what you have to go through in order to read people's minds, and you can justify it that way, then absolutely that's one way that you can go. With, for sure. You might want to talk about graphology, or you're an expert at studying handwriting. And so what you need to do is you need to have them write something down. And what you're going to do is later on, you're going to study their handwriting, and it's going to tell you a little bit about the person or something like that. That's a good justification. But again, this is all based on character, and this is all based on the type of performer you are, the type of character you have when you perform, and the type of presentation that you use. And this is all personal to you and whoever else is doing the mind reading. But yeah, those are the main justifications that I'd use. Really, I think the one that I tend to use the most is, hey, I don't want you to mess me about. I've had it in the past. I want to make sure that the person you're thinking of is the person you're thinking of, so write it down. That commits you to that name. That's a perfectly good justification and works really, really well. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so the next question is from Adrian Sutra, and Adrian says, another question. didn't see your first question actually, but I'm sure it'll turn up. You motivated me to learn a mem deck. What's the most deceptive full shuffle, and is it very difficult to learn? Great question. Well, luckily I have a deck of cards here. It's not a mem deck, but it's a deck of cards. And there's a few different full shuffles, and we'll quickly go through a few of my favourites. I'm a big fan of the just the overhand shuffle as a full shuffle when you're doing mem deck work. Because really, as I'm talking and I'm chatting, it kind of replicates how a layman would shuffle the cards. And it really kind of just does look like I'm giving the cards a shuffle. Now, if I draw attention to it and I say, look, I'm going to shuffle the cards like this, look, does it look dodgy? Maybe, maybe not. But if I'm just chatting to the audience and I say, right, we're going to do something with a pack of cards right now. There's 52 cards in the deck. I need somebody to think of a card. You're right there, sir. Can you do me a favour? Can you think of one of the cards? That would be amazing. That works really well. And how that works is you're literally holding it in an overhand grip. You're pulling off a third of the deck. You're then pulling off another third, and you're stealing this third back between the ring finger and the thumb. So as you take that third, you're stealing that third back. That gets dropped back on top, and this one gets dropped back on the bottom. So from this side, it's kind of like that, but you hold the cards like this, so the front is towards the audience, and it looks very, very deceptive. Now, the other thing that you can do with regards to an overhand shuffle is you can breathe a crimp. Let's say the 7 of spades is the bottom card of your stack. You can breathe a crimp the bottom card of your stack like this. And the reason that's useful is obviously I can cut, and I've breathed the crimp it the wrong way because I'm an idiot. You need to breathe the crimp it this way, don't you? So you breathe the crimp the bottom card of the stack like this. So now I can cut that I can cut the deck, and I can have that 7 of spades at the bottom very, very easily. So I can always cut to have the 7 of spades at the bottom. So now I can replicate an overhand shuffle just by doing single cuts. Because obviously a mem deck, you know as well as me, cutting doesn't really shuffle the deck. So I can do this sort of thing again while I'm chatting to the audience. I can say, hey, I'm going to show you something with a pack of playing cards, and it's going to look like I'm shuffling the cards even though I'm just cutting them, and then I can just cut at that breather crimped card, and I've got the deck back in stack. And if you do have a breather crimp there like that, so you can cut it and get back into stack, then the other thing that you can do is you can do a Charlier shuffle. Which is where you take the top to the bottom, bottom to the top. First person I saw do this was Pat Page. Charlier shuffle is great. It just looks like a really messy shuffle. Really, really messy shuffle. And it looks like you're just really just messing up the cards. But the Charlier shuffle doesn't really shuffle the cards, it just cuts them. So now all I have to do is just make sure I cut to the breather crimped card, and I'm back in stack, which is a fantastic way to do it. Obviously, if you've got a table, you can do a push through shuffle, and you can do a push through, which is a very, very useful shuffle to do. It looks really nice. Or you can do a Zarro shuffle, which probably wouldn't look very good from that angle, but if you get it right, it can look quite deceptive. I'm not really great at the Zarro shuffle, to be honest. It's not my strongest point. A shuffle I like to do, and again it's done kind of on the offbeat, is a false Pharaoh shuffle, where you take the cards and you shuffle them, and they see they're being shuffled in, and then in the action of just cutting the deck, you've got the cards back in stack. You've completely stripped them out. So all you're doing is you're taking a small packet of about 20 cards, farrowing them into the big packet, pushing them in at an angle, so you actually end up straddling that packet that's pushed in. You hold that position for a minute, and then you just cut the deck and you just strip out the cards that you farrowed in. So it would look in full speed like this. Guys, I'm going to give the cards a bit of a mix-up. I'm going to give them one of those fancy shuffles like that, just to see if it's mixed up. And I want somebody to think of a card. You right there, sir. Can you think of a card for me? Would that be okay? There's 52 cards in the deck. And now, I've stripped out those cards and we're back to normal, which is a brilliant way of doing it. And then, the best shuffle, really, in my opinion, is the Ben Earl shuffle. I think it's called the Grey Shuffle. You can learn it from his DVD set that he put out through Alakazam. Can't remember what it's called. But it's a really great shuffle. It replicates a waterfall shuffle. So the whole idea is it looks like you're waterfall shuffling the cards, but it really does look very, very deceptive. It really looks. And again, you do this on the offbeat, but it's a very deceptive shuffle. It really does look like your waterfall shuffling your cards. And, you know, again, you don't want to draw attention to it, but if you're talking and you're saying, look, I'm going to give these cards a shuffle, and I'm going to get somebody to help me. You right there, sir, can you give me a help? Can you help me? And then if you throw a few false cuts into the mix as well, and you give the cards a few false cuts, if you've got a table, you can do some table false cuts, you know, an up the ladder cut like that looks really nice. A 3-packet cut looks really nice. And then if you're obviously in the hands, you can do a nice in the hands false cut, which, you know, something like that. Depending on your style, you know, you can do this sort of cut again, which is quite nice. Just tabled false cuts, and, you know, there's millions of different things that you can do ultimately at the end of the day. But realistically, if you want to put your time and effort into one shuffle that looks the most deceptive, I'd say it's the Grey Shuffle by Ben Earl. I think that looks very, very deceptive. So there's a few full shuffles for you and a few places that you can learn them. Hopefully that answers your question. So the next question is the Kitchen Magician, and the Kitchen Magician says, hey Craig, here's a question I have. When I'm performing, people always ask, can you make me or my wife disappear? What's the best response to this? Because I often just laugh but never really know what to say. Cheers, the Kitchen Magician. There's a few different ways that you can approach this. And again, it very much depends on your performing character. You know, and I've approached it in many different ways over the years. If you've got the right type of character and somebody says, can you make my wife disappear? You just go, yeah, 50 quid and a shovel. And if you just deadpan them in the eyes and you go, yeah, 50 quid and a shovel and I'll make it happen, that's kind of a really funny moment, but you've got to go full on deadpan here, as if you're looking at it as a business opportunity. Can you make my wife disappear? Yeah, 50 quid and a shovel and I'll make it happen. Or something like that works really, really well. Another way that you can actually go is by saying, you know, I could do, but, you know, can you make my wife disappear? To be honest, if I could, I'd make my own disappear first or something like that. Or, yeah, I can absolutely make your wife disappear. I made mine disappear many, many years ago, so it's not a difficult trick to do. Something like that, again, works kind of well depending on your performing character. Being kind of sarcastic and overly sarcastic is a great way to go with it. So, can you make my wife disappear? Wow, yeah, I've never heard that before. That's something I've never heard. That is totally unique. Thanks very much for that. That's well done. But again, you got to have the right type of character, because if you don't deliver it in the right way, it can just look like you're just being a dick. You've got to have established your character first of all. If you watch some of my live performance videos, that's very much a style I go with, but I've already established the fact that I'm kind of really just very, very sarcastic and not taking myself too seriously when I've got to that point. A nice thing that you can do is have like a little notepad in your pocket, and inside the notepad you can have on each page like the common things. So, can you make my wife disappear? Can you make the bill disappear? Can you make yourself disappear? Whatever it may be. And just like do a load of tallies there, you know, like cross, 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 as if you're like tallying up the total. And then when somebody says, can you make my wife disappear? You just laugh and you go, good one. And you just openly take out this pad and you just slowly turn to the page where it says, can you make my wife disappear? And you just put another mark in there and you go, yeah, anyway, where were we? And delivered in the right way. That's hilarious. I think it was John Allen that I saw do something similar to this. He carries a clicker around with him, like one of those things that you use to count stuff. And when somebody says a line like that, can you make my wife disappear? He just pulls it out and he goes, click. And it's kind of a more subtle way of doing the notepad thing, which works really well. The other way of doing it is by turning it into a trick. Yeah, I can make your wife disappear. In fact, I tell you what, I'll show you exactly what it would look like. And if the wife's there, you go, look, I'm gonna show you exactly what it would look like. I've got a deck of cards here. Can you do me a favor? Can you pick a card that's going to represent you? Can you draw a little stick person on it? Fantastic. And why don't you write your name underneath? Fantastic. Now that card's going to represent you, and we're going to try and make you disappear. And we're going to make it even harder by putting you in between two security guards. And then what you're going to do basically is you're going to do bizarre vanish. So you're going to do Bizarre Banish, the Paul Harris trick that I've done on the channel in the past. So it feels like he's holding on to the card that represents his wife. You've even got 2 security guards, 2 kings or 2 jacks or whatever, and you just pull them away, and the wife has apparently disappeared. And then you can bring her back reversed in the deck, or you can bring her back in the wallet. You can build up a really nice presentation for that. Well, I've made her disappear, but the only problem is I'm assuming at some point you're going to want her back. I mean, after all, you did marry her, right? So, let's see if we can make that happen. So that's a way of doing it, turning it into a trick. You can turn it on the head. If the wife's there, you can turn it on the head, and you can say, the guy says, hey, can you make my wife disappear? I can say, yeah, I can, absolutely. I can make her disappear so you'll never see her again. To be honest, though, would you like me to make my husband disappear? Would you like me to make your husband disappear? Because that's a better trick. And if you offer me more money, I can do it for you instead. Or something like that, play the 2 off against each other. Or if the wife isn't there, can you make my wife disappear? That's really funny. She said, yeah, I had a phone call from somebody. What's your wife's name? Donna. Oh, really? Where are you from? Solihull. So weird. The other week I had a phone call from a Donna in Solihull. She wanted me to make her husband disappear. Talk about a freaky coincidence, right? Anything like that works. The thing about any situation like this is, as you get more flight time as a working pro, as you do more gigs, you'll get into situations where you get the same thing over and over again. And then you just have to sit there and think about what's an entertaining thing to say. A lot of the lines that I use, a lot of the best lines I use have come from audience members. Somebody will say something. Can you make my wife disappear? And you'll have somebody else, another guest at the wedding, say something, or at the event say something. And you kind of think to yourself, that's good. I'm nicking that one. I'm having that 100%. That's exactly what I'm going to do. That kind of thing works really, really well. But yeah, I mean, there's a few ideas for you that can jumpstart the idea, but jumpstart the creative process. But my advice would be to sit there and think about it, and just make a list of all the different ways that you can actually respond to something like that. And you'll probably figure out your own ways of doing it. Okay, so the next question is from Antonia Diaz Ballesteros. And Antonia says, hey, Craig, thanks for answering my question. You're more than welcome. I recently discovered the Gilbreath principle, which can be used in many effects, as you can maintain the control of a stack even after a riffle shuffle, and can be used for mem decks as well. Have you ever used the principle, and do you know any tricks that involve the principle? Thank you. The 2 tricks that I use that use the Gilbreath principle is on a particular project. It is, in my opinion, the best project that's ever been created on the Gilbreath principle. I actually have it here on the screen. Here we go. And it is called Deep Breath by Matt Parrott, and it is available as a download exclusively from the 1914. I actually reviewed it probably about a year and a half ago from on the Craig and Ryland review show, and Ryland did a couple of routines off it. And one thing that he does really well, Matt does, is he actually explained, I never understood the Gilbreath principle, and Matt explains it and makes it very, very clear and makes it work. And listen to some of the things you can do with this on the download. With the Gilbreath principle, you can effortlessly predict lottery numbers chosen completely at random, sense the colours of suits and playing cards you've never seen, deal straight flushes to everyone at a poker table from a shuffled deck, divine words from books the spectator is merely thinking of, amaze anyone over Zoom by reading minds with Scrabble tiles. So yeah, I mean, he takes the Gilbreath principle and applies it to other things other than playing cards. It is really, if you're into the Gilbreath principle, then it is absolutely the best download to get. It's only £15. You can get it directly from the 1914 and download it immediately. I highly recommend it, Antonio. So if you're looking for something on the Gilbreath principle, that's the one that you want to go with. Okay, so the next question is from Adrian Suter, and Adrian says, hi Craig, thanks for another interesting Q&A, you're more than welcome. I like magicians with a very unique stage character like Priff the Magic Dragon or the time-travelling magicians Morgan and West. What are some others with great and unique stage personality? Well, you know what, I'd say the absolute best example of a an interesting stage character is Tom Crosby. I went and watched Tom's show at the IBM in Eastbourne. It was fantastic. I watched his lecture. His lecture was really, really good as well. And he talked about developing a character and creating a character. And this is somebody who is incredible at sleight of hand and close-up magic. Like, incredible. Like, a lot of people don't realize how good Tom is, but he is so good. And basically, nobody, no layman knows him as a magician. They think of him as a performing nerd. Because everything that he does on stage, even though he's doing magic tricks, they're presented in a way that people think they're real. And, you know, he actually said in his lecture, he said, when magicians come and watch his show, they see a magic show. But when laymen go and see his show, they don't see a magic show. And people don't think of him as a magician, which is why he gets so many bookings, that and the fact that he's incredible. And he's the perfect example of taking a stage character and using that character to dictate exactly the way that the show goes. And you're right, Piff the Magic Dragon is fantastic. Morgan and West are fantastic. But I think that the best example that I know of a unique stage act has to be Tom Crosby. Other people that you might want to look at is... so I can't remember who it is. He was on Penn and Teller Fool a little while ago. I think he's called the Shocker or something. He's a wrestler that does magic. Maybe it's because I like wrestling, but I really digged his persona. I love the idea of having a wrestler who's also a magician. I thought that was really, really good. But, you know, other people that have a great character as a performer, Chris Angel is somebody who, his character is very, very interesting if you actually examine his performances. And somebody else would be Richard Young and Sam Strange. If you've ever seen Richard Young or Sam Strange perform close-up magic, they are incredibly talented and just super guys. But then when you put them on stage together, their characters are just hilarious. You know, Richard Young plays this almost like buffoon-style oafish character, which is not what he is in real life. And then Sam Strange is this larger-than-life dick who's trying to make Richard Young look stupid. And the two characters mesh together so well. I really encourage you to go watch Young and Strange in their touring show. Part of the Champions of Magic, because they are incredible from a character point of view. But everybody's got a character in one way or another. I mean, just have a look at TV magicians, have a look at magicians that appeared on Penn and Teller, and see if you can pick out some characters and what they've done and what they haven't done. But if you haven't watched Tom Crosby's show, go and see it, because in my opinion, there's no one better at developing a character and just nailing it 100% than Tom Crosby. Okay, so the next question is from Sting, and Sting says, "Hi again, Craig. Hey, Sting. Hope you're fine. I'm well, thanks, buddy. Hope you're well. I think in general it'd be a great idea to make a video on forcing, like the hows and whys of forcing anything. Not the usual card forces, because people can learn them on the Netrix, etc. And a lot for free on YouTube anyway. I think more like the question about forcing a word without using the usual suspects like digital force bag and normal force bags. Show us some creative ways to force names, things, places, whatever. Would you mind doing it for the community? I'd be more than happy to. I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, let's do it. I'll put out a video, the hows and whys of forcing, and we'll talk all about forcing. Yeah, I mean, I'll add it to the slate. Hopefully, the next hows and whys is coming out in about a week's time. So after that, I'll start working on that one. Next question is less of a question, more of a statement. It's from Tom K, and Tom says, "I just started watching you about 3 months ago, and brother, you are fantastic on so many levels." Man, thank you, Tom. Most importantly, your talents are about equal to your likability, and that's the full package. Please keep what you're doing, mate. Cheers. Thanks so much, man. I mean, it means so much. It genuinely does. A lot of people don't realise it's a hell of a lot of work putting this channel together, and sometimes my dedication wavers a little bit. Like, it's like, you know, I could just sit here on the sofa and just chill for half an hour before I do something, or I could go and film another video. There's a lot of, you have to be very dedicated to put the amount of content out that I do. And, you know, it's never going to be the biggest channel, but hopefully the content resonates with the people that watch it. And, you know, if it does with you, then that makes me feel very happy. Okay, so the next question is Chris Ash, and Chris says, hey Craig, just a quick question. Is there a move that's better than the side steal to take 2 cards away that maintains order? Thanks for everything you do. I just want to clarify my question. Prior to move made, spectator cuts deck and peak is taken, but order needs to be maintained. One potential outcome, 2 cards taken from bottom and repositioned to top. I'm trying to side steal, but it feels clumsy with 2 cards. The move is not necessary, just helps clean up the routine and provides an instant reset. Okay, so let me just read this through again. Prior to the move made, spectator cuts the deck and a peek is taken. So they would cut the deck and they've taken a peek or something, right? But the order needs to be maintained. So they've done, I'm assuming the spectator's done that, and that's what I read that as. And you need to take 2 cards from the bottom and reposition them from the top. Side steal feels clumsy, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, the side steal would be clumsy because side steal really is really only intended for 1 card. It'd be very difficult to do it with 2 cards. There is a technique to side steal 2 cards that might make it a bit easy for you. If you get a break above the bottom 2 cards, you can use your little finger of your left hand to kick those 2 cards out directly into palm. And then you can kind of come over and just reposition them both at the top. So you might, after they've took their peak or whatever it is, you could take the decks back, spread out, get the break, and just position those cards into that position. So they're now positioned there, and then you could just, then just come over and just, square up the cards, and you've positioned those 2 cards at the top. So it would be in full speed, you show this, you're here, you've now got those cards into that position, and then you just bring them up to the top in the squaring action. That's one way of doing it. To be honest, the easiest way to do it is when they've took the peak. So again, I'm assuming that they've kind of done something like this. They've done something like this. You could peek, you could spread the cards out on the table, and then put your finger on the cards second from the bottom. And as you just square up the cards and pick them up, 2 left on the table, and you just pick them up and you put them on top, almost like you've spread out the cards and you've picked them up and you've left 2 on the table, so you've picked those up separately. You wouldn't want it to look like a move, but if you made it look like it was just an accident, it would be absolutely fine. So they've just done the peak, and you go, fantastic. Now think about this, there's 52 cards in the deck, and you could have picked any one of these cards. Also, you could have picked any one of these cards, right? It was a totally free choice. I have no idea what the card is. And then you're done. It's just, as I say, you just come up and, well, you don't do that. That is not what you want to do. But you do it in the right way. Kind of like, so you're here, spread up, and then just pick up like this, and then 2 are left, and you just put them on top. That would be absolutely fine. The other way that you could do that is you could get the break. So you hold the deck in your hand, and you're holding a break, and they peeked and looked at a card, and you put the deck down on the table like this, and you're actually holding the break with your thumb. So that as you pick the deck up and you put it into the other hand, you've left 2 cards down on the table. So it's the same thing, but without a spread. So you'd be holding the deck in your hand, they would get the peek, and you'd say, okay, fantastic, that's awesome. Here's what we're gonna do. And now you've repositioned those cards up to the top. If you don't mind openly, the cards need to be maintained in order, you said, but obviously you need those 2 cards at the bottom. You could just do a double undercut, just a table double undercut. So you could just literally go, right, okay, I have no idea what your card is, and then you've took those 2 cards from the bottom to the top, maintain their order. So if you've got the 7 of diamonds and the 4 of clubs on the bottom, they've just done whatever peak it is they want to do. It looks like you've just given the cards a few cuts, but you've kept the cards in order, and you've taken those 2 cards from the bottom to the top. That's another way of doing it as well. If you, I'm just trying to think of something else. Okay, so if you wanted to use the card box, let's say you incorporate the card box into this, and you put the deck into the box, but as you put the deck into the box, you insert the flap underneath the top, the bottom 2 cards of the deck, like this. So now the cards are in the box, and then as you take the cards out for whatever comes next in the routine, you take them out, and it looks like you've left a couple of cards in there, which you then put on top, and that's a nice way to transfer the 2 cards from the bottom to the top. Anything like that would work. yeah. I mean, I don't know the routine that we're talking about here. I'm just following what you've said. But based on what you've said, any one of those ideas should work. But don't try and do a side steal of just one card and try and use two cards. It would be a very, very difficult thing to do. I don't think that would work too well, to be perfectly honest. But maintaining the order, yeah, I think anything else would be fine. So hopefully that answers your question and gives you a few options in terms of what you can do. Okay, so the next question is from Pratek Kohli, and Pratek says, what are the top few justifications you can give to when the spectators puts their written thought into your peak wallet? So why are you putting the card back into the wallet? Well, I think the main justification here is to put it somewhere where you can't see it. You know, that's the main justification, isn't it? So like, you know, can you, I'm going to look away. Can you write whatever it is that you're writing on there? Fantastic. That commits you to that name. There's nothing I can do. In fact, so I can't see it, can you put it inside this wallet? Fantastic. We're going to leave the wallet down here. There is no way I could possibly know what your card is, where it is, and I'm not going to touch that wallet until later on, right? Okay, here's what we're going to do. So it's to guard the secrets. It's so that you can't see what it is that they've written. That's the main reason for putting it in the wallet. To be honest, if you've watched my video that I did last week, which is 5 ways to get a peak without actually using a peak wallet, the reason I put that together is because I think that there's very little way of justifying putting this business card or whatever it is that they've written on into a wallet. There's very few ways to justify it. I think the easiest way to justify it is to put it back in the wallet. So you've taken out the wallet and now you're putting it back into the wallet. I mean, that works okay, but realistically, that's probably the best option. I'm just trying to think of any other justifications of it. I mean, realistically, that's the only way you can justify it. I'm putting it in the wallet so I can't see it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a mentalist, so maybe there is another method and I don't know. Not a method, maybe there is another justification, I don't know about it. But realistically, thinking about it on the spot, the only reason I can think of doing that is to put it away so that people can't see it. Okay, there's one final question from Pratek Kohli, and he says, any news when the new FPS wallet by Brent Bourne will be available, which he gave a sneak peek of in the Talk Magic interview on your channel? I can't wait to get that wallet. It's an incredible wallet. I have heard on the grapevine that it's going to be out in Murphy's in the next couple of weeks. Now, I don't know if that's the case or not. I believe that Brent... The best thing to do is contact Brent Braun. He puts his stuff through Murphy's, so it goes to all magic dealers. But don't forget, he's got his own magic shop. He's got his own Facebook group. So maybe you might want to go into that Facebook group and ask Brent directly. He might have them. He might be selling them already, for all I know. I'm not too sure. Brent's magic shop doesn't ship to the UK. But if you're based in the US, and I don't know if you are, Pratek, but if you're based in the US, then they might be available now. I'm not sure. But I heard on the grapevine that they're going to be into Murphy's in the next month. Mongoose191 says, Craig, I find myself continually being amazed at the insane amount of quality content you put out to the community. Thank you so much. Seriously, I do find myself constantly wondering how you manage your time. Maybe this could be a business video because you're killing it. I appreciate that, man. I have put a couple of videos on the Netrix about time management, and I'm putting another one on soon. So there are some business videos on the silver section for time management, so it's worth looking at those. I just try and maximize my day, and I work hard. But I do have time off. A lot of people think I don't. I do have time off, but I do like to work hard, and I try to maximize my day. I think the most important thing is not being a busy fool. And what I mean by that, and this is something that my first business mentor, a guy called Doug Dawberry, said to me. He said, the biggest piece of advice I can give you is not being a busy fool. Because a lot of people, especially content creators and professional magicians, they con themselves into thinking that they've worked hard when in reality they've done nothing. You know, things like the average working from home, right? I try not to work from home, and if I do, I've got an office at the bottom of my garden where I can go and work out of. But I try to get out of my house and to the office. Because ultimately it's very difficult to work at home because there's so many distractions, aren't there? You know, you kind of get up and you go, right, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. You go and make a cup of coffee, and then you sit down in front of the TV to watch something while you're drinking your coffee, and you end up watching binge watching a couple of episodes of something, and then by that time it's kind of lunch, so you're going to go and fix yourself some lunch, and while you do that, you're in the middle of doing something else, and you end up feeling like you've worked hard all day, but in reality you've done nothing. I mentor somebody, a business person. It's got nothing to do with magic. I do business mentoring, and I work with businesses away from magic as well. And I'm currently mentoring a business owner, and when I started working with him, he was his time management was terrible. He got nothing done in a day ever. He had big plans, but nothing would ever get done. And it worked out that he was just on Facebook all the time. And he was telling me how important it was to be on Facebook, because his work comes from Facebook and he gets inquiries from Facebook. And the problem was, every single time he got a social media notification, he opened it up, and that led to a rabbit warren. So what would happen is he'd get a Facebook notification, he'd deal with that, then he'd be on Facebook. And Facebook would lead to a YouTube video, which would then lead to him watching this YouTube video. And you know what happens when you get on YouTube. And then, he ends up putting the phone down. Then he's got another social media notification. And his working day was just sitting there dicking on his phone all day. And I said, turn the notifications off. Just turn them off. If somebody sent you a message, you can deal with it every couple of hours. I told him, every 2 hours, go on and check your messages, but don't do anything else on social media. And his work output went through the roof, and his profit went through the roof. Not just turnover, but profit, because he was getting more done. And I think that's the most important thing, maximizing your time. If I'm doing something, I want to do it 100%. Have a to-do list. One of the big problems is when people sit down to work for the day, they spend ages figuring out what they need to do on that day. The last thing that I do before I leave work the night before is I make a list of everything that needs to be done the next day. So when I sit down at my desk, I've got that list in front of me. I can hit the ground running. Right, okay, I've got to do this, and I've got to do this by 11 o'clock. Let's go. So it's about being focused. It's about being focused and not being distracted, and maximizing your time. I think that's really important. But yeah, if you want to know more about this sort of stuff, go check out the silver level of the Netrix. Okay, so the next question is from Willie Chen, and Willie says, hey Craig, now I know somebody else has asked this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Last week I asked about Curtis Cam, I remember. This time I'd like to ask you about my other favourite magician, and the one thing that you have in common with me is that both of our favourite magicians and influencers is Scott Alexander. I've sort of grown fond of Scott Alexander, let's just say, ever since his Penguin Christmas lecture, which you probably know he still does his Christmas lectures to this day. I like his character, his energy when he performs, and his lectures in front of the audience. My question is, what's your favourite effect of Scott's do you like to perform? Yes, I know you did a Scott Alexander top 3 before, but have they changed since then? Do you have any thoughts on any of his other products he's released that you may have, especially any of his products from the Pro Line series that he's released with Bob Kohler? And maybe one additional question, do you have his book 52, and are you getting his follow-up book Marvelous coming later this year? I haven't got 52. I plan on getting 52. I don't know why I haven't got 52, but I am going to get it 100%. Marvelous I'll definitely get. Scott is a massive influence on me. I love everything that he does. Everything. I can't really nail 3 tricks. I should do a Scott Alexander special, review show special or something. Stuff that I do in my act currently. Superfly is one that I do all of the time. My handling of Superfly, I think it's absolutely brilliant. Velocity, you talk about the Pro Line series. I do Velocity all of the time. The paintball bullet catch, I love Velocity. Always have, always will. What else? I mean, they're all just so good, aren't they? His handling of ring flight is incredible. My egg bag routine is very much based on his egg bag routine. In my illusion show, I don't personally do it, but the illusion show with Nemid, we always make sure Nemid does Nailed It. I think Nailed It is incredible, and Nemid does it so well. I haven't seen anyone do Nailed It better than Nemid, and that includes Scott, so that's saying something, right? So we're currently putting a 45-minute show together for Ireland. He's got a 25-30-minute show. We're adding another 15 minutes because he's got quite a lot of bookings coming in for 45-minute shows. And one thing that we've got that he's doing in his show that we're currently rehearsing right now is Wishes, which is the Bubble Monty routine that Scott and Puck put out. And on the subject of Scott and Puck, I also do Message in a Bottle. I do that all the time. That's an incredible routine as well. There's a load of other stuff, but yeah, you're right. Scott Alexander is amazing. I've just seen he's brought a new trick out as well. Can't remember what it is, but I remember thinking I was going to get it. Let's see if we can get his website up. Scott Alexander. Oh, how do you spell Alexander? Hang on. Alexander Magic Shop. See if we can find it. No, my computer's decided not to. There you go. Right, boom. Big Cartel, that's the one. Oh, he's just brought out Final Answer 2.0. That's good. Final Answer Reloaded. Wow, he's got some new stuff in. I didn't even know this. Oh, he's got a Shoe Business 3.0. Good grief, this guy just doesn't stop, does he? Yeah. There's a new thing he's got coming out, and I can't see it anywhere. But it was his version of the stab routine. I don't know. It's just come out through Murphy's. I'll see if I can find it. But I remember thinking it was very good. Why can't I find it? I don't know. It was somewhere. Backstabber or something like that. Anyway, bottom line, Scott Alexander is absolutely incredible. Okay, so the next question is from the Fess, and the Fess says, "Hey Craig, I wasn't able to post a question last week, but I have one for you this week." Well, welcome back, Fess. Firstly, you mentioned Dean Dill on one of the Q&As a couple of weeks back, and when I asked about the ECC by N2G, you said it took inspiration from Explosion by Dean Dill. I've done some research, and he's probably one of the best coin magicians I've seen. I agree. Can you do a magic stuff for a 5x5 on his work, as his stuff is killer? Absolutely, I will. Dean Dill, two of my favourite pieces that I have in my collection is my Dean Dill table and my Dean's box. And Dean was responsible for so many incredible pieces of magic that were released over the years. And he's just an incredible magician. Not just a coin magician, just incredible magician in general. And yes, absolutely, I think we need to talk more about Dean's material. So I will definitely be doing a video on Dean Dill, 100%. Okay, so the Fess has another question, and it's on gravity flippers. What's the difference between a pro gravity and a regular gravity flipper? I'm assuming one is magnetic, and if so, what are the advantages of a pro over a regular, and which one do you personally prefer? I don't think there is a difference. I don't think there is. I think that they're both the same thing. Let's have a look. Let's pro gravity flipper. There we go. Well, no, not flip art. Flipper. There we are. Pro gravity flipper. Pro gravity flipper by Tango. I think that Tango have just decided to call their coins. Yeah, it looks to me. It looks to me that they've decided to just call their coins Pro gravity flippers, but I don't think there's any difference. There's no difference. I mean, when you're talking about a magnetic flipper, that's normally a magnetic locking flipper, like a double deception by Bob Swaddling, which JB Magic has the rights to. A gravity flipper, realistically, is a flipper that opens by gravity. The old school flippers were ones that you used to shake open. And then once you shook it open, they wouldn't lie flat because they'd be wanting to close. And a lot of the time, the banding was external, which means you could see the band on the outside of the coin. The new style flipper coins, the gravity flippers, which I think really the first person to use this was Jamie Schoolcraft, or maybe Todd Lassen, but probably Jamie. And the gravity flippers, they drop down by gravity and they lie flat, and the banding is internal. So from the outside of the coin, you just can't see anything. It just looks like a normal coin. It lays completely flat, and all of the routines I've ever published with a flipper coin, of which there's lots, they all rely on using a gravity flipper because the gravity flippers lay flat, right? The gravity flippers lay flat, and that's the basis of all of the coin routines that I've ever put out with the flipper coin. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, there's no difference between a pro gravity flipper and a gravity flipper as far as I'm aware. If I'm wrong, please somebody let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, whichever one you tend to go for, they're awesome. You know, they're really, really good. I think it's one of the best coin gimmicks that you can get. And I definitely made my reputation as a coin guy using the flipper coin. And still to this day, you know, there's a routine that I do in my lecture with a flipper coin that's one of the most well-received items in the lecture. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question. Does it? I think it does. Okay, so the next question is from the Kitchen Magician, and the Kitchen Magician says, first of all, love your show, keep up the hard work, you're an inspiration, I really think your advice is top tier, thank you very much. What's your thoughts on inappropriate magic tricks? I saw a post from a magician in a forum where he uses a sponge ball routine and keeps telling the spectator to touch my balls. That's just one example. What about the panties or bra on handkerchief? I just think these tricks and patter are in poor taste and just borderline sexual harassment. I'm pretty sure a woman would not appreciate it, and honestly, it's now changing time. The times they are changing, and these cringy sexual tricks are not okay in 2022. What do you think? Where's the line? I see many magicians on Facebook groups, frankly, stuck in the 80s. It's not funny, it's creepy, and it's cringe. Yeah, I mean, it's all about playing to the audience. It is 2022, and I don't do sponge ding dong. I don't make sponge cocks appear. It's not the sort of thing I do. However, and I do agree in a lot of situations it's not appropriate, and I've seen magicians do it in gigs and I've cringed, and I'm just like, oh no. I've got a friend of mine who doesn't do this anymore, but for a long while used to make really inappropriate jokes in gig situations where they just weren't appropriate. However, there are times when that sort of thing is appropriate. I've been booked for hen parties where they are all over me like melted butter, like seriously all over me like melted butter. And you know, if you want to survive a gig like that, sometimes you have to go in that direction. Occasionally I use a line when I'm doing a coins across where I have a woman rub my hand and I say, can you rub my hand? It's got nothing to do with the magic, it just feels nice. That's not done hardly ever. I mean, I do that line very, very occasionally, and it's only when I've got this woman there that's a big flirt and I'm just kind of playing along, but even then I don't do it very often. I think it's about, but I also know that there's magicians that I really respect, big name magicians that I really respect, and I've seen them kill with a sponge cock. So really, I think it's down to the performer, and I think it's about knowing your audience and knowing your material. I agree. I personally would never do the panties on bra, on handkerchief or anything like that. But I do know that there's a lot of people out there that it's appropriate for, and it works really well. If you don't like it and it doesn't suit your style, that's fine. No problem. Don't do it. I don't do it. But there's going to be somebody out there and it will fit their style, and it's about knowing the audience that you have in front of you. Okay, so question number 2. What routines do you recommend with music playing in the background? What's on your playlist these days, and what routines do you enjoy including music with? You know what? In my illusion show, we use a lot of music, obviously, with the illusions. In my cabaret show, I don't use as much music, and when I do, it's just small moments in the show as opposed to music playing all of the time. But Ryland uses a lot of music in his show. In his 20-minute act that he's getting booked to do an awful lot at the moment, he opens up with a routine where he's using music, and it's a smaller version of the cube act that he did on BGT in the semi-final, and he's using the same music, which I think is A Moment in Time by Odessa. And then he does a patter piece with no music, and then he does music again over the Milk and Light Bulb, and he does Army by Ellie Goulding, but the instrumental version. And then he goes into his finale routine, which is all about colours, and he uses a routine from Pocahontas, a song, instrumental version of a song from Pocahontas. He's currently working on a routine with Silver Odyssey. If you don't know Silver Odyssey, it is the best coins across for stage work ever. Like, Silver Odyssey kills. So Ryland's putting this whole coins across routine together that's going to play to a big audience, and it's just beautiful. It gives, every time I see him rehearsing it gives me goosebumps. I think it's going to be the best thing in his show, like by far the best thing in his show. And he's currently using discombobulate for that. If you don't know discombobulate, if you saw the original, well, not the original, but if you saw Sherlock Holmes, the first one, not the second one, with Robert Downey Jr. in it. It's a track from there. If you go on Spotify and search for Discombobulate, and there's some really nice moments that hit with that track, and it's perfect for the Coins Across that he's doing at the moment. So Discombobulate's good for that. So he uses a lot of music, and him and I listen to a lot of music on Spotify and just make a note of stuff that sounds really good. And then when we're putting routines together for him, we'll pick out tracks that we think are appropriate. But yeah, I think that music really adds. I think musicality is very important. We spoke about Scott Alexander before, and I think that Scott Alexander, his book Musicality, is incredible and absolutely something that you should check out, because if you're performing magic and you want it to play bigger, whether you're on stage or in a close-up competition or whatever, then definitely I think you should be using music alongside that. Okay, so the next question is from Magician Edge. And Magician Edge says, hey, great Q&A as always. Haven't asked a question in a while, but yesterday at a gig, weird things happened. I've done my stage parlor show like 1,000,000 times. I know all the jokes and things I say inside out and back to front. I hate when it happens, but I sometimes even think about something else while I'm performing and go into some kind of autopilot. We've all been there. But I always try not to do that. I said that just so you know that I know my material very well. Cool. But yesterday I was telling a joke to an audience and something happened. I couldn't remember the second part of the joke. It was very weird. It was some kind of blackout. I couldn't remember what I was going to do. I couldn't remember what was going to be the next trick. It went away. But anyways, it was very strange. Have you ever felt something like this? No, I haven't. I do forget things from time to time. I've definitely forgotten patter lines. But I don't really forget the trick that I'm going into next. Generally, because I have no idea what I'm going into next. Like a lot of the time when I do a stage show, not so much an illusion show when I'm working with other people, but with a stage show or a parlor show or a cabaret show, I literally have a box of stuff and I'm blagging it. And as I walk over to the box, I have no idea what I'm doing until I look in that box and pull something out. And I've probably got 1.5 to 2 hours worth of material, and I'll just take out what I think is appropriate, because I like to vary things up based on the audience. I don't want to have a set show, because if the audience reacts to one particular type of thing and goes in one direction, I want to have the flexibility to go in a different direction. So I definitely don't forget what trick's coming up next, because a lot of the time I don't know. I have forgotten patter lines in the past. That just comes from old age. Old age. I'm 46 now, and I do forget stuff from time to time when it comes to patter lines. I have done that, but luckily I've got this kind of style where I can just laugh it off, and I can, I'm hopefully likable enough that people just realize that I'm kind of making it up as I go, and they're going to have a good time regardless. But no, I've never had anything like that. It sounds like you got through it. If you're worried about it happening again and you have got a set show, just in case, just write down the show and put it inside your case, so that if you forget it, you can go back inside your case and you can look at it, and hopefully that will jog your memory. But no, other than that, I've never heard of that before. I'm really sorry. So there you go, guys. That's another Q&A in the bag. Do me a favour, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you once again for joining me here on a Sunday. You want to see more videos like this? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. I'm going to be back again later on today with a review show special. I'm also going to be back a little bit later on with a Magic Live. I'm going to have a whole bunch of videos next week. But do me a favour. I get people on this channel all the time saying to me, how can they support the channel? You know, I've had so many questions on awesome content, and I really appreciate everybody. If you want to support the channel, try out Netrix. I'm putting my heart and soul into making Netrix the #1 magic streaming platform in the world, and I'd love your support. If you'd like to join the Netrix, I would love to have you there. We're nearing on 200 videos, tricks on there, not just tricks, but Steve-O stuff that he's just put up on crafting and crafting essentials and making gimmick cards and card splitting. It's worth the price alone, in my opinion. And then there's hundreds of tricks and hundreds of sleights, and it's just only going to get better. So if you want to support the channel, please try out Netrix. Outside of that, thank you once again for checking out the Q&A. I will see you again soon. My name's Craig from Magic TV.